Hi, I'm Nora Jackson, the daughter my father mocked on livestream while gifting our billion-dollar empire to my golden boy brother. He smirked until a forgotten clause hurled 51% of the company into my blood-flecked scrubs. How did one signature flip a dynasty and drag Houston to the brink? What time are you tuning in, and which state are you watching from? Have you ever been blindsided by your own family? Drop your story below and smash subscribe so you don't miss what happens next. The valet snapped the limo door shut behind me, and the heat of Houston's early May evening wrapped around my gown like plastic. Floodlights traced my silhouette across the crimson carpet toward the post oak ballroom. Each flash felt less like celebration and more like surveillance. I inhaled, tasted freesia and diesel, and kept moving. Inside, chandeliers dripped crystal over a forest of tuxedos. Dad, Philip Garrido, greeted me with a smile hard enough to cut glass. "Nora, glad you could leave the sickbay for one night." His tone was honeyed for the cameras, arsenic for me. Susan, flawless in midnight silk, shepherded reporters toward my younger brother. Scott basked, dimples set to maximum charm, while polished folders waited on a mirrored podium behind him. Their edges glinted like scalpels. Waiters circled with champagne. I refused 3 times, finally took the 4th just to stop the offers. The flute trembled against my thumbnail. I blamed air conditioning, not nerves. 16 years ago, Dad's banquet for the new dry dock. I asked why we didn't invite the shipyard nurses. He said kindness didn't raise dividends. I blinked the memory away, swallowed bubbles that burned. A string quartet hushed. Dad lifted his goblet. Tonight, legacy chooses its rightful heir. He thanked donors, praised Susan's PR genius, then pivoted. My daughter's charity hobby is admirable, but empires require iron, not gauze. Laughter, polite, and lethal. He gestured to Scott. The deed to River Oaks, majority shares, and international accounts, because loyalty deserves reward. Applause detonated. Paper slid into Scott's hands. My pulse drummed inside my ears, but I managed a smile icy enough to match the room. I imagined arteries, clamps, something to fix. There was nothing. A cough cut the clamor. Ken Kratz, our family lawyer, stepped forward, clutching a slim envelope sealed in wax. "Mr. Garrido, your late mother left a contingency document. She instructed it be opened only if you ever attempted to disinherit Dr. Jackson." Gasps fluttered. Dad's jaw flexed. Ken broke the seal. "Effective immediately," he read. "My 51% voting shares transfer wholly to my granddaughter, Nora Jackson." Cameras erupted. In the space of 12 seconds, gravity inverted. Power tumbled into my lap like a live grenade. Dad's glass slipped, shattered across the marble. Scott's smile curdled. I felt oddly weightless, as though anesthesia had flooded the hall. I took the microphone. "Thank you for your generosity," I said, voice steady. "Unfortunately, this celebration ends now. I'm on trauma duty at 5 a.m., and there's work to do." Murmurs, confusion, a few nervous laughs. I handed the mic to a stunned MC, turned and walked, slow, deliberate, past rows of startled donors. Behind me, shards crunched under my heels. Susan's whisper followed, razor soft. "Empires bite back, honey." I didn't look at her, but the chill in my spine answered. In surgery, I controlled bleeding. Here, the wounds were invisible and everywhere. Which would open first? Link to next chapter. The scalpel or the scepter, what will slip from my hands at dawn? Continuing the content of the previous chapter, the siren in the trauma bay sliced through my hangover of champagne and humiliation. 4:17 a.m., and Houston still smelled like wet asphalt and fryer grease. I slid from the ambulance bay's sodium haze into Trauma 1, blood drying stiff on yesterday's scrubs. The phone in my pocket was set to Do Not Disturb. I wasn't ready to read what the internet thought of secret clauses or shattered champagne. The gurney burst through the doors. Male, 32, steering wheel imprint across his ribs, hepatic artery torn wide as a busted fire hose. 2 units Oneg, rapid infuser, I barked, hands already in chlorhexidine. Steel met flesh, suction hissed, and the world shrank to a field the size of my palms. My mind was steady, but another voice ran underneath. Madam Chairwoman, majority shareholder, queen of a kingdom that wants you gone. I told it to shut up and packed the liver. Halfway through the anastomosis, the scrub nurse tapped my shoulder. Her eyes said it wasn't about the patient. She held up my pager. Board emergency vote 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Chair removal. Signed by Philip Garrido, C.C. Scott Dileski. Of course. The room tilted. If I stayed, I lost the company. If I left, this man might bleed out. I heard Mom's mantra as clear as EKG beeps. First, do no harm. I nodded to Dr. Malik, youngest attending on the roster. You're closing, I said, voice calm though my pulse sprinted. Don't chase perfection, chase hemostasis. He swallowed hard, nodded harder. I stripped off gloves, grabbed my coat, and sprinted into dawn. Freeway lights blurred past like milky comets. Ship channel cranes speared a cherry-pink horizon. 42 minutes. I parked crooked, ignored the valet's protest, and took the executive elevator smelling of leather and betrayal. The boardroom looked like an untouched operating theater. Bright, cold, waiting. 12 directors faced forward. A live-stream drone hovered near the ceiling, red LED blinking. Dad stood. Negligent leadership, he announced. Medical scandals, investor panic. Our chair is unfit. My dried blood posed helpfully on my sleeves as Exhibit A. I plugged a tablet into the wall screen. The live stream flipped to Trauma One's feed. Malik suturing the final stitch. Patient stable. Vitals green. That man walks because I stayed, I said. GLH's bylaws grant the chair 48 hours notice if she's providing essential medical service. Motion is out of order. Silence. Then rustling paper as directors confirmed the clause Velma had crafted years ago. Dad's temple twitched. Susan offered a tight, PR-friendly smile that never reached her eyes. I felt the tension ease half a notch, exactly enough to remind me it could snap again without warning. Meeting adjourned. Outside, cameras swarmed like mosquitoes after floodwater. Scott wedged beside me, voice low. Next time your patient won't survive long enough for a live stream, sis. He patted my crusted sleeve. Better pick which oath matters. Flashbulbs popped. Questions flew. But my brother's threat rang louder than any reporter. Blood on my cuffs had gone from badge of service to bullseye, and both worlds knew it. The overheads in OR 12 were dim to twilight, the way we softened the world for a body already gone. Jamal Torres lay small beneath a warming blanket he no longer needed. I pressed my pen to the death certificate, ink bleeding across the box marked exsanguination. My first fatality as chair. The hum of the monitor, still on thou it tracked only zeros, felt like a reprimand. Outside, the corridor lights flickered funeral yellow. Mom's compass pendant, now mine, rested cold against my throat. I will never trade a heartbeat for $1. I'd sworn that at 16, fists clenched around Velma's arthritic fingers. Tonight the promise tasted like rust. My phone vibrated once, twice, then erupted. Screenshots flooded in, a podcast clip, splicing my voice with OR intercom chatter. We're losing him, sorry, I have to go. Total fabrication, but slick. Scott's grin floated in the show art. The episode title read, Scalpel and Sellout. By morning, the hashtag #suture and sabotage trended above playoff scores. The hospital comms director cornered me outside pathology. The board wants a statement by 9. Make it punchy, make it penitent. He smelled of burnt coffee and panic. News trucks already ringed the loading dock when I reached administration. Carla caught me at the elevators, tablet glowing. Bad gets worse, she said. Scott invoked the catastrophic risk clause. Second chance fund is frozen. 12 pediatric cases on tomorrow's slate are canceled. Her voice wavered only at pediatric. Jamal's mother stood in reception clutching a stuffed turtle, eyes red and empty. When she saw me, hope flared, then died like a match in wind. Parents gathered, a quiet storm building. Kitty ushered them into the atrium, handed out water, listened. Grief refines fury. By noon, they were chanting under the marble mezzanine while Houston Chronicle live-streamed every syllable. The GLH stock ticker crawled beneath the video, dripping red scents. Facing microphones, I chose clarity over comfort. The fund reopens in 24 hours, or I resign. Gasps hissed through the crowd. My voice held. Children don't wait for board politics. Back at my condo, the war room now, blueprints and bylaws papered the kitchen walls. Carla traced arrows from dormant accounts to a dormant nonprofit we could resurrect overnight. Kitty brewed coffee strong enough to scour brass. 17 hours, she reminded me, tapping the clock app. We drafted filings, notarized through a bleary-eyed paralegal who owed Kitty a favor. Outside, thunder rolled across the bay, or maybe that was just 18-wheelers on the overpass. At 2:13 a.m., a text pinged. Scott again. The image loaded slow. A stainless tray, a toe tag, Jamal's name in neat serif. Caption, more will follow. My thumb shook, then stilled. Fear cooled into something solid, surgical. I saved the photo, filed it in a folder labeled Evidence, and whispered to the dark apartment, not one more. The city lights answered like silent jurors waiting for dawn. The lobby smelled of burnt coffee and wet cardboard when I arrived at 6. Parents had claimed every inch of terrazzo, sleeping on flattened donation boxes, clutching surgical consent forms like passports. I moved through the maze with a tray of gas station cups. 4 p.m., I promised, handing cocoa to Jamal's mother. The money clears, the kids roll upstairs. She nodded, gaze hollow, but holding a spark I couldn't afford to dim. A camera crew materialized. Emily Reed, Chronicle Bulldog, Auburn Bob sharper than scalpels, pinned me against a column live on morning feed. Dr. Jackson, did you leverage my son's operation for corporate drama? Behind her, Luke, tiny under a Astros blanket, waved from a wheelchair, blissfully unaware he was surgery number 7. Board members peered from the mezzanine like vultures on a rail. I did not, I answered, microphone inches from my mouth. The fund was frozen without my consent. She cocked a brow. Yet, you're still in charge. I'm in charge, I said, because I plan to fix it, not exploit it. Outside on the steps, we spoke off record, or so we tried. Give me 24 hours, I bargained, exclusive on what really rots inside GLH. I can't sit on a story while children wait, Emily shot back. You have until noon. After that, gloves off. She marched inside. Thunder was scheduled for the afternoon, but her heels brought it early. Carla texted, Grant filed. Bank estimates 3 hours. 3 hours felt like 3 centuries. We posted the timer on the lobby jumbotron anyway. Parents huddled beneath it, glancing up as if watching countdown to oxygen. At 9:12, my phone vibrated like a trapped hornet. TikTok link, account asterisk, true charity leaks asterisk. I tapped. There I was, stuffing $100 bills into my lab coat, smirking at an unseen lens. They'll never know, the deep, disembodied voice sneered. My voice, twisted a half step lower. In 20 minutes, the clip hit 1 million views. Nurses avoided eye contact. A janitor whispered, crook, behind his mask. The board convened an emergency ethics session without inviting me. I ducked into the stairwell where reception died and panic could breathe. Kitty called, voice firm. Metadata's dirty. Codec mismatch. Timestamp 2 a.m. Looks stitched. Hope sparkled, then fizzled. Truth matters, but virality moves faster. We'll blow it up at 5, I said. Full forensic breakdown. She exhaled, then survived till 5. 11:30. Timer read asterisk 00:30:12 asterisk. Coffee was gone. Patience too. Parents began chanting, voices ricocheting off glass. Unfreeze! Unfreeze! Reporters jockeyed for angles. Emily climbed a folding chair, mic raised. Dr. Jackson, the world is waiting. What's your move? My phone buzzed again. ICU extension. Luke Reed. Oxygen sats dropping, heart rate spiraling like water down a drain. The nurse's words blurred, but the final question struck clear. Do we call it off? I looked at the timer, 19 minutes, and at Emily, her jaw set but eyes suddenly mother-wide. Choices fractalized, elevator up to OR, or podium to defend myself. Scalpel or scepter, flesh or optics? I answered with the only part of me not paralyzed, my feet, bolting toward the surgical elevators as chance cracked into confused silence. Behind me, the timer kept bleeding seconds none of us could spare. 5 o'clock found me on the treasury floor, staring at a screen that refused to turn green. Processing. Still processing. 12 pediatric beds waited upstairs. IV poles hung like question marks. CNBC crawled across another monitor. Panama shell links GLH to laundering. Treasury eyes sanctions. My pulse thudded to the same rhythm as the red ticker. At 5:30, I launched the live stream promised the day before, deconstructing the TikTok fake frame by frame. 500,000 viewers watched the splice dissolve under forensic light. Some even apologized in chat. Then a reporter cut in, mic hot. What about the Panama entity Garrido Maritime Relief? Wire transfers match your fund. Carla leaned in, whisper smelling of mint and dread. Our audit files, gone. Someone wiped the server. A wind turned to ash inside my mouth. Minutes later, an email landed like shrapnel. Office of Foreign Assets Control. Identify the Panama owner in 48 hours or all international payments freeze. Scott's cell voicemail was full. Susan answered my call with background jazz and a yawning, "Talk tomorrow, darling." I hung up on the saxophone trill. Security tapped on my office door and slid an envelope beneath it. Inside, a Polaroid of Kitty's teenage son bound to a chair, crimson thread coiled tight around his wrist. The note bled Sharpie. Unfreeze fund equals boy bleeds. My breath lodged halfway. Velma's voice surfaced, steady as a metronome. Courage is silent until summoned. Kitty's badge pinged a GPS dot near the ship channel warehouses. Detective Marco Reyes, still in scrubs from an off-duty ride-along, met Carla and me in the garage. No sirens. Silence is armor when shadows listen. We found the van outside Unit 43, paint peeling, motor ticking. Inside, Kitty lay groggy from tranquilizers. Blake Monroe, our own head of security, stood over her with a stun gun, eyes glassy with adrenaline and fear. Hands where I can see them, Reyes barked, badge glinting. Blake lunged. Carla swung a tire iron low. Metal met shin. Blake crumpled. Zip ties clicked. Orders came from the penthouse, he muttered, as cuffs bit his wrists. My stomach clenched. Susan again. We rushed Kitty and her boy to the ER, red thread still digging like an accusation. Once they were safe, Reyes and I rode the express elevator to floor 58. Susan greeted us barefoot, Merlot swirling. Storm clouds bruised the skyline behind her. I call it collateral choreography, she said, slipping a folder across the marble bar. Inside, emails drafting the sanctions leak, Monroe's payment schedule, talking points for my resignation. Step down, Treasury backs off, the kids get their surgeries, everybody wins. The wine in her glass trembled when I spoke. Tomorrow at dawn we face Treasury together. You retract the leak, name names, and sign any confession Reyes places in front of you. Refuse, and he arrests you tonight. Her smile twitched, a crack in porcelain. Lightning forked over the bay, thunder following like slow applause. She tipped her glass as though toasting an uncertain truce. Outside the penthouse windows, rain began in slanted sheets, tapping code on the glass. The timer on my phone still showed 21 hours. Long enough for repentance, short enough for ruin. I turned toward the elevator, leaving Susan framed by lightning, trying to decide which future hurt less. Sunrise smeared saffron across low clouds as I paced the helipad, wind lifting my hair like warning flags. The sanction clock on my tablet blinked 000500, 5 minutes before Treasury slammed every door. Susan was supposed to meet me up here, but only gulls swooped between towers. I exhaled steam into the humid dawn and headed for the elevators. Prayer felt useless, but motion still mattered. Ground floor marble had barely caught the first sunbeam when the glass doors burst open. Dark suits swept in, SEC jackets, FBI windbreakers, bootsteps echoing like gunshots. Scott, wrists cuffed behind his back, appeared in the wave. Face drained of its usual smirk. An agent read charges: wire fraud, cyber libel, obstruction. Body cam footage streamed to 1,000 phones. In the corner of every screen, GLH stock free fell, numbers redder than fresh blood. Dad lunged from the boardroom, tie askew. "You can't take my son," his voice cracked, more fear than fury. Agents moved past him as if he were a decorative column. I tried to meet Scott's eyes. He stared at the floor, jaw twitching, and was gone into the sunlight. Carla intercepted me by the security desk, whisper sharp. Forensic audit triggered. All domestic accounts frozen until they trace Panama. I saw it instantly. Payroll in 24 hours, zero liquidity. A patient can bleed out in 90 seconds. A company bleeds slower but kills more bodies. My phone buzzed. Union boss Hawkins texted, "If checks bounce, Port Houston shuts 6 a.m. tomorrow." I pictured tankers choking the channel, chemotherapy shipments stranded, bread lines lengthening. Family skirmish had become regional siege. We retreated to the sub-basement war room. Concrete walls, no windows, the hospital's panic bunker. Treasury liaison on speaker outlined grim choices. Sell a chunk of my voting shares for quick cash or accept a hedge fund loan at loan shark rates. Either move gutted my control. Reyes tapped a pen like a metronome of impending cuffs. I closed my eyes long enough to hear Velma. "Clamp the bleed. Save the organ." "I'll collateralize my real estate," I said. "Primary home, the lake cottage, mom's condo. Market value covers payroll twice over. Ownership stays." Carla's eyebrows shot up, then settled into determination. Reyes left to escort a banker through the federal barricade. Time suddenly was surgical, every second paired with its own instrument. By late afternoon, the gathered port workers massed outside Gate A, neon vests bright against gathering clouds. Loudspeakers counted down from 10 as I signed the final page of the line of credit package, ink still wet when the courier sprinted inside. "We're funded," I announced into the portable PA. A relieved roar rolled back toward the docks. An FBI agent lingered as the crowd dispersed. He spoke quietly, almost gently. "Ma'am, another warrant was just issued. Your stepmother. We'll serve it tonight." Thunder grumbled over the bay, as though the sky had opinions too. I glanced toward the tower where Susan's penthouse lights flickered on, a distant lighthouse or perhaps a firing flare. Payroll was safe for now. Legacy remained in triage. But darkness was moving down the shipping lanes, and I could feel the next incision lining up beneath the storm. Morning glare bounced off 3 walls of glass, turning the boardroom into a greenhouse for panic. 11 directors murmured around the horseshoe table. Chair 12, Velma's former seat, sat empty, badge flipped face down. Outside, helicopters chopped circles over downtown like curious vultures. Dad rapped the gavel. "Due to regulatory chaos and reputational bleed, I move for immediate removal of Dr. Nora Jackson as chair." His voice carried the same warmth as dry ice. Susan glided behind him, distributing glossy folders. My alleged crimes in 12-point font. A red light atop the ceiling drone winked. Investor feed live, every heartbeat time-stamped. I lifted my chin. "Before you vote, disclosure. Kitty Nguyen will join us this morning." Elevator chimes punctuated my sentence. Kitty stepped out, thrift store blazer hugging bruised arms, new laminate badge reading, Director, Employee Representative. A hush spread. Dad's gavel slipped an inch. "Bylaw 7C," I reminded them, "permits the chair to fill a vacant employee seat with 90-day tenure. Kitty qualifies." No one argued. The cameras would catch any protest that smelled anti-worker. Kitty took Velma's chair, hands folded, eyes steady. Roll call began. 4 aye, 4 nay, 2 abstain. Dad paused dramatically, savoring his vote. "Aye," Susan echoed. Tally 5-5. All eyes slid to Kitty. She cleared her throat. "With respect, I vote no confidence in the motion." I exhaled once, silent and seismic. A banner flashed across the live stream. "Jackson survives vote." Miles away, Scott watched from county jail. The feed caught his laptop snapping shut. I felt the tremor all the same. Screens at the far end blinked, hijacked. Maurice Crane, CEO of Vulture Capital, grinned into the frame. Greetings, shareholders. We are offering 40 cents on the dollar for your suffering stock. Clock's ticking. A countdown timer materialized. 013000. The GLH price line dove on the sidebar, dragging retirements and mortgages with it. Turn that off, Dad barked. Its staff scrambled. Crane laughed, signal unmoved. Panic prickled down my arms. Rescue payroll, stave sanctions, now fend off a corporate raider. Dad's hand flew to his chest, his face drained to chalk. The MedAlert app on his phone shrilled. He stumbled. Susan froze, glassy with calculation. I vaulted the table, eased him to the carpet. Call 911, I ordered, already counting compressions. 1, 2, 3. Board members hovered useless as mannequins. Paramedics arrived inside 3 minutes. We regained a pulse, weak and stubborn. As they loaded the stretcher, Susan leaned close, breath wine-sweet. His shares default to me if he doesn't wake, she hissed. Tick-tock, doctor. I watched the gurney disappear into the elevator, then eyed Crane's merciless timer, 004207, and the still recording drone above. 2 burdens, each fatal in its own way, demanded first incision. I squared my shoulders toward the streaming lens. Board reconvenes in 10 minutes, I announced. We are not for sale. My voice sounded carved from granite. Inside, arteries raced. Somewhere below, ambulance sirens wailed toward the ICU. Cameras kept rolling, clocks kept bleeding. I had 40 minutes to outoperate a vulture and outrun death, again. Machines breathed for my father while the sky wept behind ICU glass. At 2 a.m., the monitor's white noise sounded like waves grinding stone, steady, relentless. I counted each blip the way a child counts stars, unsure which would vanish first. Sorrow pressed against strategy. Love said, stay. Legacy whispered, move. Footsteps. Susan arrived with the hospital attorney in tow, perfume mixing with disinfectant. She produced a notarized paper, smug as a magistrate. Philip executed power of attorney last month. His 17% now shelters under my LLC. She tried for sympathy. Her eyes glittered too hard. I scanned the document, spotted Velma's conflict of interest clause, and invoked ethics review. 24 hours. My father's empire bought one more day. Dawn bled into the atrium where shareholders logged in from Boston, Sacramento, Singapore, faces tiled like disapproving saints. Pension funds and Crane's vultures demanded a breakup vote within 72 hours, citing irreparable mismanagement. Carla's spreadsheet cast the math in neon. Carve us apart, and I'd tumble under 49%. I swallowed fear and countered. One company, one future, contingent on landing FEMA's hurricane response contract. Bid closes tomorrow night. Value, $1.2 billion. We already own the cranes, the med pods, the know-how. Directors murmured. Cranes smirked. They granted me 36 hours, nothing more. The smirk faded when news alerts dinged. Tropical storm, Helena jumped to Category 3, bullseye on the Gulf. Port Houston began voluntary evacuation orders. Our central warehouse lay in the surge zone. Suddenly, every face in the call looked smaller. Midnight found Kitty and me flooding FEMA's virtual briefing with live drone feeds, modular wards, real-time inventory. I spoke like a surgeon explaining a life-saving graft. The panel nodded, impressed, then asked for proof of liquidity. Perfect setup. Susan crashed the call, hair lacquered, voice sugary. Internal instability makes any guarantee meaningless. I flashed the ethics hold document, pledging my home as escrow sealed credibility. An inspection was set for noon. Rain hammered the roof as generators hummed. Lights flickered, died, then the red emergency glow snapped on. My phone buzzed. Floodwall breached, Pier 14 already 2 feet under. I grabbed a hard hat and touched Dad's immobilized hand. If I save your empire tonight, I whispered, it finally belongs to everyone you ignored. Sirens wailed outside, half hurricane warning, half prophecy. I stepped into the stairwell, boots echoing, wind howling down the shaft. Decision hour wasn't coming. It had arrived, riding on black water and borrowed faith. August's first light glinted off wet steel as the final FEMA med pod lifted from Pier 12, rotor wash sending salt spray across my boots. 2 months ago, Helena threatened to drown us. Today the cranes still stand, and so, miraculously, does GLH. I drew a breath that tasted of diesel, seaweed, and something I hadn't felt in years: margin. By mid-morning, FEMA countersigned the $1.2 billion contract. Crane's breakup coalition dissolved before lunch, their lawyers slinking back to New York. Carla's calm voice briefed every outlet. Jobs safe, stock up 11%, port families paid on time. Reporters begged for a victory quote. I offered a covenant instead. If a hurricane taught us anything, it's that profit is worthless unless the city survives to spend it. I rode the elevator to ICU with that promise echoing. Dad's eyes opened as thunder rolled in the distance. Summer afternoon, not omen. The stroke had stolen cadence from his words, but meaning broke through the gaps. Wrong. About you, he rasped. I pressed his hand. It still hurt, I answered. And it still matters. His fingers tightened once, apology and acceptance tangled together. Healing would be another long rehab. We understood that much. Justice moved faster for Susan. DOJ agents collected her from the penthouse the same hour the FEMA wire cleared. Charges: kidnapping conspiracy, market manipulation, attempted grand theft by power of attorney. Kitty watched her led away, eyes damp but steady. Make sure the court sees facts, not vengeance, she asked me. Truth is enough punishment. I promised. Because Velma's compass always pointed to mercy after exposure. Scott's letter arrived that evening, prison mail still smelling of disinfectant. He admitted the envy that hollowed him and wrote of the relief convoys he'd tracked from a cell TV. Maybe building beats stealing. I placed the envelope beside the compass. Unresolved, but not unwelcome. 3 weeks later, the atrium where Dad once distributed mockery became a town hall. Dock workers in muddy boots, nurses in Crocs, analysts in pressed collars, everyone under one skylight. I unveiled a profit-sharing plan and a mental health fund named for Jamal Torres. Applause rose like tentative surf. A few arms stayed folded. Trust requires scar tissue to knit. When the crowd thinned, Kitty joined me near the glass wall, dusk painting Crane's copper. What if the next storm hits harder? She asked. I studied the rebuilt flood wall, the new med pods stacked like promise, and the pier workers laughing with engineers they'd once feared. Then our bridges better hold, I said. A breeze carried the scent of Gulf water and fresh concrete. Somewhere beyond the channel, autumn storms were already coiling. Whether this family, this city, could outlast the calm that follows was a question only tomorrow could answer. But tonight the skyline lights reflected in the harbor like doubled stars, and for the first time, the empire felt less like a throne and more like a bridge. Looking back, I've learned empire, family, even reputation are only scaffolding. What keeps a place standing is the steady choice to lift the person beside you. Power feels safest when it flows outward. Profit grows quickest when everyone eats, and forgiveness is cheaper than revenge in the long run. That's my compass now, and maybe it can guide you when the next storm rattles your life. What bridge will you start building today? Drop a 1 in the comments, or share your hometown, if this story sparked something. Didn't vibe with you? Tell me why. I read every word. And if you want the next story before the clouds roll in, hit subscribe. The floodlights stay on.